everyone, welcome back to the channel. I have a video clip I'm going to play for you guys, and it is of Elliot Brandt, the CEO of AIPAC, essentially bragging about, boasting about, admitting their control of the United States government. He's talking about how they get these politicians when they're young, when they're first starting out in their political career, and they form relationships with them. They fund their campaigns, and then they activate those people later on. And this is not anything new. They've been doing this for a long time, but it's wild to me that people argue about this as if this is even questionable at this point. The influence that this foreign country in the Middle East exerts on our government. So take a listen. I want you to hear it in their own words.
The executive, but as we were talking.
Okay, so this is Elliot Brandt. He is the current CEO of AIPAC. AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They are a lobbying organization that never had to register under FARA as a foreign lobby, which is essentially what they are. All other lobbying organizations for other countries have had to register as foreign agents. They have not. And they clearly have a major role in basically picking our politicians. So he's saying we may not lobby the executive as we were talking about, and he's talking about the current president, but he's saying basically we have all of our people in his administration for us, that, you know, that we can lobby them. Listen to what he says.
There was a discussion earlier about Congress being representative to the people. Well, the White House has to be responsive to Congress.
So the White House has to answer to Congress, he says, and has to be responsive to Congress. And we work with Democrats and Republicans, and we basically control the Congress and both sides. That is what he says. Listen to it. Listen to what he's saying. So at times it's working with our friends on the Democratic side of the aisle to apply pressure.
So it's working with, at the time, our friends on the Democratic side of the aisle to apply pressure.
And by the way, he's talking about applying pressure to the current administration. Okay, so they use the Democrats to grandstand for things, to fight the administration. The administration then has to answer to Congress the way that they know how to an administration, as it will be with this administration. So yeah, we have an administration, and now let's use our control of Congress to control
the way that they know how to an administration, as it will be with this administration. Bob was talking about the people who will get appointed into some of these jobs.
Now he's talking about people who will be appointed to fill the administration. All right, now listen to who he mentions, and listen, what do you think about these three individuals? Does this not make so much sense?
Look at the top level, you talk about Marco Rubio and Elise Stefanik, and Michael Waltz. Those three people have something in common. They all serve in Congress.
Those three people have something in common. They've all served in Congress and have taken our money, and they all have, he says, relationships with key AIPAC leaders from their communities. What he's really saying is that they already have AIPAC handlers. And that makes so much sense when you look at Elise Stefanik. She is constantly tweeting out, not about Americans, but about anti-Care Bearism and anything that benefits the Care Bear Nation. But she doesn't really care about her own constituents because they're not her constituents. Her constituents, in reality, are her donors, are the people that funded her political career. And that's what they're saying they did. They established relationships with these people who are now serving in key roles, at high-level roles in the administration. They already have their claws into them. Listen to this creature. Is this not insidious? Is it not demonic?
Relationships with key AIPAC leaders from their communities. So the lines of communication are good. Should there be something questionable or curious that we need?
So, and this is another thing that should be it should be cause for alarm. He says the lines of communication are good. Should there be something questionable, talking about questionable to them or curious, and we need access on the conversation so we can use these people to grant us access to conversations that are happening at a high level in the administration. This is very clearly talking about openly boasting and bragging about. Of course, this was a private meeting of AIPAC where this recording was made, but amongst themselves, they openly are talking about this level of influence that they wield.
Access on the conversation tip. You never know. One of the first candidates I ever met with as an AIPAC professional in my job was meeting candidates for Congress was a guy named John Ratcliffe.
John Ratcliffe, the current head of the CIA. So he's saying, when I was first starting out as a professional in AIPAC, a professional foreign lobbyist that doesn't have to register as a foreign lobbyist, very early in my career, I met John Ratcliffe when he was challenging a longtime member of Congress in Dallas. So Ratcliffe was new to the political arena. He is going up against an incumbent, somebody who's been in Congress for a long time, challenging them in Dallas, and that is when AIPAC offered their money. And now that he is in a position of prominence in this presidential administration, heck, the head of the CIA, they're basically admitting, like, hey, we've owned this guy since the very beginning days of his foray into politics. I find it disturbing
He was
on so many
challenging a
levels.
long-time incumbent member of Congress in Dallas. This guy looks like he could win the race. When you go talk to him, he had a good understanding of the issues.
He had a good understanding of the issues. What that really means is that we told him what the understanding should be of the issues, and he was receptive to that. He went along with it. And now, just a couple of weeks ago, he took the oath as the CIA director, for crying out loud. Yeah, isn't that fascinating how your little scam works?
A couple of weeks ago, he took the oath as the CIA director, for crying out loud. This is the guy that they had a chance to speak to. So there are I don't want to call them lifelines, but there are lifelines.
There are lifelines there, he's saying, in the administration. So they have people that they can kind of call in favors from, essentially. All individuals who have long-time AIPAC relationships and handlers.
Think that the war of ideas is.
Oh, and now they start talking about the importance of controlling information, the importance of censorship, which is fundamentally anti-American. And I want to add as well that if this was any other foreign lobbying organization talking about funding our politicians, appointing them handlers, being able to call in favors, get access, have lifelines, people would be concerned. If it was like a Chinese lobbying group, a Russian lobbying group, and they were boasting of this level of influence on American politicians and a presidential administration, I think that everybody would be concerned about that. They'd say, hey, this isn't a good thing.
Crucial battleground here. And I'll give you an iterative example, just so you can sort of a thought experiment. You guys do that. Imagine 5 years from now, a congressional staffer.
So he's talking about wanting to control information so that 5 years from now, when we have congressional staffers asking questions and wanting to know, hey, does this relationship with this country in the Middle East benefit America, or does it harm America's national security? They want to be able to control the information that's out there so that when they do searches on ChatGPT, it gives them the answer that they want them to have.
Types into AI, Claude, GPT, at that point, it'd be like GPT-14, whatever, right? Says, is supporting Israel bad for American national security? The answer that they get back is going to be informed by the information that's on the internet today.
That's why they are the biggest pushers for censorship, for hate speech laws, for getting, going after protesters. You're not allowed to boycott them. If you want to be a defense contractor in the United States, you have to sign a pledge affirming them. You don't have to do that with any other country. You don't have to be an American defense contractor. If you want to have contracts with certain state governments and states across the country in America, you have to not only sign a memo or whatever you want to call it, document affirming this country's right to exist or whatever, but you also have to sign a pledge not to boycott them. Isn't that fascinating? And so, yes, they are dangerous to American national security. Mostly because they engage in espionage. They're stealing constantly our military technology, selling it to our so-called adversaries. They stole our nuclear technology, and they had placed in 2020 Stingray devices all around Washington, D.C., all around the White House. They've run, international trafficking rings to blackmail our politicians. It is outrageous that nothing is being done about it.
Which is why punching back in the information sphere becomes so important.
Punching back in the information sphere becomes so important. Basically controlling the narrative, controlling the news, controlling the Western media. That's what he's talking about, and I find it incredibly dark and disturbing. Now, Vincent James was responding to the stupidity of James Lindsay, and he says, AIPAC is one of 70 separate organizations that are a part of the whole Care Bear lobby. AIPAC alone was rated as the second most powerful lobby in DC by Congress several times. Well, I don't care what Congress says and how they rate things. I would say it's the most powerful one. Employees at AIPAC have bragged about getting the Senate to sign off on blank cocktail napkins. So they say here, quote, we have a dozen people in this is talking about Bill Clinton's headquarters. They are all going to get big jobs, Steiner said. Soon after the tape's existence was disclosed, Steiner resigned his post. You see this napkin? He said in 24 hours, we could have the signatures of 70 senators on a blank napkin. They basically say that, look, we own a lot of these senators, these Congress people, and they basically give us a blank check to do whatever we want because we give them money. In 1997, Fortune magazine asked members of Congress and their staffs to list the most powerful lobbies in Washington. AIPAC was ranked second behind the American Association of Retired People. Yeah, I'm going to call X to doubt. A National Journal study in March 2005 reached a similar conclusion, placing AIPAC in second place. And I'm going to call X to doubt on that as well. I think it's, the number one. From Politico, members of Congress have taken hundreds of AIPAC-funded trips to the Care Bear Nation in the past decade. Yeah, they go on these propaganda tours. The guided tour, it's absolutely ridiculous. And while they're there, they're lied to, they're propagandized, and then they come back and they spout talking points that were given to them by their handlers who take them on these lavish, all expense paid trips. They get to go on a vacation and have fun, and they only see what they want to show them, and they don't see the rest of what's happening. And just look at this image right here. I think this pretty much tells the picture. The 2024 primaries, who is the real winner here? Well, regardless of what political party of the fake duopoly won, as you can see, AIPAC actually won. Whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, AIPAC has their people, and this is quite a number. That's almost control of the entire Congress here. These are, by the way, campaigns they funded, and their candidates won versus lost. Almost all of their candidates won because they dump millions and millions of dollars into these congressional campaigns. If you do not support their agenda, their foreign policy agenda, and you're running for office, they will fund your political opponent to the tune of millions of dollars, while they'll also have their other organizations like the ADL, the SPLC, publish hit pieces, smear pieces about you, disparaging your character and, praising your opponent. An employee of the U.S. Department of Defense once served 13 years in prison for passing secrets to the Care Bear Nation through APAC employees. Of course, the Care Bear APAC employees had their charges dropped, and the only person who served time was the Irish Catholic Lawrence Franklin. So, isn't that interesting? Oh my goodness. You couldn't make it up if you wanted to. How can a Bronx Irish Catholic get mixed up with these people? Yeah, I wonder how. We'll just never know. Oh, yeah, government to drop espionage charges against APAC officials. Steve Rosen and Keith Weissman accused of providing U.S. defense secrets to Care Bear Embassy in Washington. That's exactly how this works. James Lindsay says he wishes that AIPAC had more power. It is important to mention that the top two people who AIPAC supported in 2023 and 2024 election season were Democrats. This is the new right wing, quote unquote. Yeah, pretty interesting, isn't it? I just, I find this to be incredibly ridiculous. And then finally, I want to end it on this. Netanyahu speaking, sitting next to his wife, Sarah, he says, today, the Care Bear people possess a superpower that guarantees the eternal survival of the Care Bear Nation in the Middle East. What would guarantee that? Well, Hans believes it is their nuclear weapons program, the Samson option, right? And he believes that they actually used a small tactical nuclear weapon in Syria on December 15th, and that this has been proven by geophysical evidences. Now, I'm not an expert on that. You can go to his account, Hans Benjamin Braun. You can read what he said about this yourself. You can look at the readings from the area. It's very interesting, but I find this to be concerning. That they just openly say this stuff and nobody cares about it, but if it was any other country, people would be up in arms. And I'm interested to know what you guys think. Do you think that American politicians, congressmen, senators should have handlers who are lobbying and represent the interests of a foreign nation, and this nation wants to censor the internet and pass all these hate speech laws and control information because they don't want it to, make them look bad. Any information that talks about what they're doing, the crimes and whatnot, they want that censored. Well, this is fundamentally anti-American. We have freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of association, ostensibly. And so, no, I think this is highly inappropriate. But I'm interested to know what you guys think, and I hope you all have a good day.